There are things in life that you come across where you go, I'm experiencing this one thing, but I feel like there could be something more to it. It makes you curious and wanting to know more about it and maybe explore into it. Now, I'm just talking about a recipe here, or the origin or the history of this recipe, making it bigger than it needs to be. But that's how I feel about this recipe as opposed to, skydiving or paragliding and any of those big things. Maybe they're not even comparable, who knows? Anyways, there's this particular dish that I would see often at a Indian restaurant, and it's called Rogan Josh. I've tried it in various Indian restaurants only out of curiosity because I had not heard about it before. This is something we don't have in my household, in my parents' household, or what we grew up with. So I was very curious about it, and after ordering several other dishes at an Indian restaurant, as one does because it is more of a shareable feast, a menu, I'd always find that the base note or flavor of it would be very similar to the other dishes. It wasn't distinguishing enough for me. So I kind of forgot about it. If we ever went to an Indian restaurant anywhere, I wouldn't really order the dish because I kind of felt like I would be a little disappointed. This is not to say that the dish is not delicious. There's a lot of people who enjoy it. And it's not to say that all Indian restaurants are serving up the same Rogan Josh dish. It's just how I feel. And that's because I grew up in a household where we've had many, many different desi dishes. And there's a flavor that I'm familiar with in terms of that each dish actually has its own distinct flavor because each dish, its ingredients are what drives those flavor points. So when I was tasting the same base note, it could be just one meat dish, the same as any other meat dish on that menu. That's how I felt and that's how I tasted. This video is really about me diving into something and trying to understand its origin, its history, its obtaining its knowledge basically as to where it really came from, what this dish really is, why does it even exist, and why do you see it on so many Indian restaurant menus. There is a recipe that is part of this video if you want to jump over to the recipe and don't feel like learning any of the aspects of this dish. Please see the timestamp below. If you'd like to stick around, and I hope you do, in knowing where this dish really came from and then also understanding its culture derived either from this dish or the culture derived the dish, whichever one. Please, I hope you do stick around. So let's first go into the history of Rogan Josh. What is this dish? There are few paths that lead to the history of or where it originated from. One for sure that is known that this dish did originate in Kashmir. Now, Kashmir, there is both in the Pakistan and the India side, but we're looking at Kashmir in general. It is a dish that is still to this day cooked and eaten very lovingly there. And where the paths may split, I don't know enough about the history without diving even deeper into it, where I can say with such conclusion who inspired who. Some may say the Mughals may have inspired the people who were living in Kashmir at the time. We're talking centuries back. Or the Kashmiri people inspired the Mughals. The way that I see this dish originating, I'm suspecting that the Kashmiri people inspired the Mughals. If there's anybody in India or Pakistan watching this and knows much more about its history, please, I ask that you comment down below. I'd be really curious to know what the actual history behind it is in terms of its origination. Now, the reason I point this out, because the Mughals were Muslims, and Kashmiri people, there were a lot of Hindu people living there at the time, and there still are, depending on which part of Kashmir you are in, which then also creates two different types of Rogan Josh dishes actually. One is for Muslims, one is for Pandits. Pandits are actually Hindu priests. They're not the people who I learned recently, Pandits, where you see people who know a lot about sports and give their commentaries on it. I didn't realize there were Pandits, or Pandits in general, where they have or obtain a lot of knowledge and pass it on to people in regards to their expertise. Pandits are actually Hindu priests, but it all depends on where you're really from. But from what I know, Pandits are Hindu priests as part of the Hindu culture. Now, Pandits are also mainly vegetarians. Muslims are meat eaters, and that created an interesting question for me. If Pandits are mainly vegetarians, why did the Pandits in Kashmir eat meat? Over there, the Pandits in Kashmir, and I think to this day also still eat meat, and I think part of there are a sector in Bangladesh that also eat meat. If you see where Kashmir is on the map, it is in a very cold region. It's neighbors to the Himalayas. So vegetables were probably harder to come by at that time. And to sustain some fat and warmth in the body, meat would be consumed. They still don't eat any beef, but mutton, goat, lamb, chicken, I believe they eat all of that. I'm not sure if they eat fish, but beef is still not a meat that they would eat. The other distinguishing factor between the Muslim Rogan Josh and the Hindu Rogan Josh is that in the Muslim one, they do actually use all the alliums, which is the garlic and onions. Whereas in the Hindu Rogan Josh, there are no alliums. There are no garlic or onions. So what they use instead that gives it a similar taste to an allium is an ingredient called asafoetida. So in the Muslim version, they will use garlic and onions. In the Hindu version, or in the Pandits version, I should really clarify, they don't use any garlic or alliums. Instead, they use asafoetida. So that, as far as I can tell, is the history and the nature of this dish and why there are two actually distinguishedly different dishes, even though they're using the same type of meat. The cooking ingredient used and the style of cooking is slightly different. Now, being that it's from Kashmir, if you look at the map, you can see that there are dotted lines. Unfortunately, Kashmir is one of those places where it's been through a major political strife, and I believe it's still going a little bit to this day. It's heartbreaking because the Kashmiri region is actually extremely beautiful. It's, I think, been called as a heaven, an area of heaven by one of the explorers. The people there are wonderful, they're beautiful, the culture is beautiful. The art, the clothing, the music, everything is really beautiful. And when you look at the cooking style, it's quite simple, but very distinguishably flavorful. Now, there's a place called Murray that my family used to visit a lot when I was young. And this place is beautiful. And I always remembered this place as being mountainous, tall trees, cold, and I actually like some cold. I'm more of a cold climate person than a hot climate person. And to this day, I still miss it, and I wish I could go back maybe sometime in the future, I'm not sure. But if Murray looks anywhere close to what Kashmir may be looking like, it's got to be extremely beautiful. And if you look at the map again, Kashmir is very close, if not part of the Himalayas. So you can just imagine the rocky regions, the mountains, the snow-capped mountains, the greenery here and there, the streams of fresh water. It is, even the clean air, it is extremely beautiful. I wanted to see if I could get some images to show on this video without being flagged as a copyright issue, but it was a little bit hard because a lot of the photos are from tourist sites. Instead, I went to a site called Unsplash, and I wanted to give a huge shout out to the artists on there who have provided these photos to be viewed and used. In this case, we're using this in this video. I will put credits at the end of the video to show who the artists are that provided these images, so I want to thank them very much if they ever do watch this video. Next, let's get into the etymology of the words Rogan Josh. First, let's look at the word Rogan. Rogan in both Urdu and Persian or Farsi means oil or fat. Rogan in Hindi means red as well as fat. If someone is much more familiar with the Hindi language, I'm more familiar with the Urdu language, but if you are watching this and you're familiar with the Hindi language, can you please let us know what Rogan really means? Is it red and fat, or is it red or fat? Josh denotes to passion, fiery, hot passion, and the way this dish is actually cooked, it's actually cooked with such gusto is the best way for me to describe it, where the liquid and the oil are boiling and it's cooked at such high heat. This dish, by the way, is mainly cooked for special feasts, like weddings, for example, and it's done by people who are wazwan. They are the chefs. And come on in, boo. Come on in. The dishes are being cooked on hot coals in a line, all packed in together, and the reason because it's so cold, the vessels are relying on heating or keeping each other hot by being right butted up against each other. So if you also see the shape of the vessel, it goes up into like a vase-like shape. And what that will do is actually help keep it nice and hot in the pot by not allowing it to cool down that quickly from the opening of the vessel. So it's cooked in high heat, it's roiling, boiling in there, and that's the Josh part of the Rogan Josh. So really, Rogan Josh is describing not just the color of the dish, which is actually quite vibrant red in color, but also the way it's cooked. Next part is actually my favorite part, the ingredients used in this. And the reason it's become my favorite part because I didn't realize what is really used to help color the dish. But before we get into that, let's go over the ingredients that makes it distinguishably a Rogan Josh dish. The feature ingredients are dried ginger and dried fennel. And the reason for dried ginger being that it's in an area, I think it's better now. They have crops for growing ginger, but beforehand, it'd be hard to have ginger growing all year round. So whenever they harvested ginger or were able to get their hands on it, they would dry it, pound it down to a powder form, and that way it gets used in dishes all throughout the year. So dry ginger and dry fennel are two of the main ingredients in this dish that imparts a specific flavor to it. The next ingredient is the more interesting bit. It's a dried cockscomb flour. It's a flour that looks like a brain, as it's been described to me, and if you look at it, I guess it looks like a brain, but I think the name is really derived from the fact that it's like the top part of a rooster, hence cockscomb flour. And it is a flour that is grown quite a lot in the region of Kashmir. And it's used not just for coloring clothing, which it can be used as a dye, but it's also used to color meals or color food. And it doesn't impart any particular flavor, but it does give it a nice vibrant red color. The way to extract that color from a cockscomb flour is actually steeping it in hot water and letting it sit there for just a little bit till it becomes nice and red. And then you pour that into a dish as it's cooking and it makes it nice and red. The other interesting ingredient, where if you don't have a cockscomb flour or don't want to use a cockscomb flour, is called ratanjot. A ratanjot is a root of an elk-nut flower, and when I tried to look up what these flowers looked like, they are kind of bluish purplish petals in color, and I think they're quite small, and I don't know how one discovers how a root can help color a dish. And that's the evolution of cooking and cuisines, how we see things or people discover things and how they ended up using it, probably from trial and errors. This particular root looks quite interesting. It looks like a dried bark, but if you look at it, I don't know if you can actually tell on the camera, it has a bit of a burgundy purpley hue to it naturally. And if you actually ended up rubbing your fingers across the root, it leaves a bit of a residue, but it can be easily washed off. The way to infuse the color or extract, the color from a ratanjot root is by actually cooking it or infusing it in hot oil. And the longer you leave it, the darker and deeper it gets. And then you can use that infused oil poured into an already cooking dish. And then as it's cooking, it actually makes it an even deeper red, almost burgundy in color. That is what we ended up using for this recipe because I could not, and I tried to get my hands on cockscomb flour that was not adulterated in any way. It wasn't preserved in anything. It was actually dried out to be able to use for cooking safely. For this dish that we cook, we actually did the Pandit's version. We did not use any garlic or onions. We ended up using asafoetida. Now, asafoetida can be procured in a powder form or in a more stabilized form in terms of it comes either in cubes or in a block. Now, the thing with asafoetida, it is notoriously pungent. And that's just... That's the nature of asafoetida. Now I've found that the powder has a lot more pungency versus the block or the hard version of an asafoetida. We keep the powder version. It's just easier for me to go in with a spoon, scoop out and take as much as we needed. And I found the best place to put it in, or best type of vessel to put it in, is a glass vessel with a tight lid. They come in plastic bottles and you can just smell it out of those little containers. Put in a glass jar and very minimal. You'll even forget that you have an asafoetida inside your house. Please don't be discouraged in wanting to try this ingredient because of its pungency. It's kind of like, really stinky blue cheese. I'm not a big blue cheese fan. Rob loves them. I have tried different varieties of blue cheeses, and yes, the taste does not match the smell. It does taste better than it smells. Asafoetida is kind of like that. It does give flavor to a dish, but the smell is what it is. You just need a little bit. So if you're someone who's allergic to alliums, I've been told that asafoetida is a great alternative, but if you are curious in using asafoetida in lieu of an allium because you're allergic to it, please talk to your doctor or a dietitian to confirm that you are okay to use it. Again, very little goes a long way when it comes to using an asafoetida, which means it'll probably last you a long time. We've had this jar almost to about here, full. And it's only about halfway down now, and we've had it for almost 2 years, so it'll last a good while. And so far, it has not lost its boldness in taste or pungency, so it has not diluted in any way. Don't worry about it. It's not like where you need to throw it out after a year or something. It still has all of its attributes, guaranteed. And the next thing is, which is what we ended up using for this recipe, is yogurt. Now, I was reading up and some people said they don't use yogurt traditionally in Kashmiri Rogan Josh. We ended up using it. I actually looked up a ton of recipes to see what worked, what didn't work, do comparisons, and we opted to using yogurt for this one. I think the vessel that it gets cooked in is key. I haven't cooked it in that type of vase-shaped vessel, so I can't quite confirm it, but if you look at the mechanics of it, because it has a smaller opening at the top, it goes out a little bit at the bottom. The way it cooks, if you're just using the meat juices or its own broth that gets built up in the cooking process, a lot of people said that they don't use yogurt, they just use the broth inherently coming out of the meat to have it cooked down with the fat and make its own sauce from there. I think that shaped vessel is a key component to allowing that, where you don't have it cooling down too quickly, but you're allowing the broth to be melded and basically, what's the word? What's the word when you fuse like vinegar and oil? Emulsification.
Emulsify, yeah.
Thank you. Words. What it allows for the broth and the fat to do is eventually start to emulsify. I don't have that vessel. What I'm using here is called a karai. It looks like a wok, but it's much thicker and heavier than a wok. It actually retains heat really well for a longer period of time versus a wok where it's that particular container is made to cool down quickly. The karai will actually retain the heat. And as you can see from the karai, it's actually quite widely open at the mouth, so the dish would cool down a lot quicker. The emulsification would not happen as well. So we ended up using yogurt. But basically all that's really thickening it and help building the sauce in this dish is the fat, the liquid that the meat releases as it's cooking, and the yogurt. That's it. No tomatoes, no onions, nothing of that. Not even, what would you use? Not even, well, if people want to use flour to thicken something, none of that is used. So you can see how simple this dish is in terms of ingredients. There aren't a large amount of ingredients in this. And of course, if you were doing it in the Muslim version, you would use, you could actually use fresh ginger if you wanted to, or stick to the powdered ginger, and you can use garlic and onions. And the onions would help thicken it, so you probably wouldn't need yogurt. I haven't made the Muslim version yet. I actually am enjoying quite a bit just doing the Pandits version, the Hindu version. I like the simplicity of it, and I also have everything already on hand. I don't need to do any chopping, actually, of any kind, and make the dish. The key part of this dish is just patience. It's allowing everything to cook together and let the meat get tender. The meat does not need to be falling off the bone tender. It should have a slight bit of chew and hold on to the bone a little bit, not quite falling off the bone. Another thing that is used traditionally is mustard oil. That's a starting cooking process. And the way it's used, because mustard oil does have a bit of a slight pungency to it as well, is that you heat up the mustard oil in any cooking vessel that you have till it starts to smoke, and that reduces the pungency of the mustard oil. Once it smokes, turn off the heat, let it cool down a bit, and then you can start adding things as needed in the steps of the cooking process. We actually already recorded this portion of the video where the explanation part, but I wasn't feeling very well that day. I had the oncomings of a massive ear infection, and half of my face was in pain and very hot. So decided to re-record this portion, but we did do something that is outside of our norm. We actually ordered Rogan Josh from 2 different Indian restaurants in downtown Toronto, and we wanted to do a comparison in terms of taste test. So do you want the one from Skip or the one from DoorDash?
Well, let's order them both.
We are, but which one do you want to order from? They should be serving now. It's like 12:15.
Sure. Start with Skip.
Oh, it has to be one each.
What do you mean?
Because I can't do both. Do you want them to do? Well, I guess because 2 different apps.
It's 2 different apps.
Yeah,
of course.
Okay. We already did record that, so you're going to see it after the recipe is shown. And we had interesting findings, and we want to share it with you guys. So I'm done talking now. Let's go into the recipe. If you find that there's too much oil on top, you can always take that oil off. And actually, I would say save it. You can use that oil as a base flavor for other cooking items. or even for marination if you wanted to. If you ever get a chance, I do hope you make this. You can also just do a small portion of it. It is very tasty. My mouth is watering just thinking about it. So thank you for watching this portion of the video. I'm glad you stuck around to know the backstory of Rogan Josh, and here we go.
Your guide to bed.
Food's here. It's all here.
Man, we have a lot of Rogan Josh now.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
Sit down.
Careful.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I get the feeling we need bibs.
I have.
Yeah, lots of, yeah. Okay. Well, this is interesting. So these are obviously delivery orders from two different restaurants in two different parts of Toronto.
Yeah.
Both sort of have a good reputation for authentic Indian food.
Yeah.
And this is what we made,
Yeah.
which looks quite different.
Very different. One, definitely the color is very different. The smell is also very different. And you can also see they more than likely used tomatoes.
Yeah, these two feel very thickened.
Yeah.
I was noticing, just as you go in, it feels almost thickened with flour, but I don't think they are.
No, it's probably tomatoes and onions, which is how we usually end up making a lot of our gravies.
Whereas the sauce that ours came with is a very thin, sort of a liquid, quite red sauce. So what do we try first? Should we try ours? Or
Yeah, let's
try
try ours.
not that we think ours is better, but hey. It's interesting because obviously we eat a lot of sort of Indian, Pakistani. I hesitate to use the word desi because I'm not.
You can definitely use desi cuisine.
We eat a lot of desi cuisine, and this is very distinctly different. It's got it's a very clean taste. You can taste the sort of the individual spices, but there's an interesting, almost citrusy note. And I noticed, well, there's the yogurt, but also when you cooked the
Ratan
jot,
Yeah.
it had a certain little citrus hint to it.
Oh, you were saying that it had a citrus scent to it.
Yeah, almost. It's not so much citrus, but a little bit of an acidic hit.
And we didn't add a lot of it either.
No, it's not very much, but it definitely creates a distinctive flavor that's very different from your regular sort of curry type of dish.
Now, we did not use prime cuts. In here, we used stewing lamb meat because we wanted to be able to use something that may be a little more accessible for people versus what I have in the freezer, which is something that I get with my mom. We tend to go to an actual butcher, an Arabian butcher, and he has a whole leg ready for us, and we divvy it up between the two of us. But we used stewing lamb meat, and then where we were at, they had a bag of bones. So I added some extra bones to it for extra richness. So it did take longer to cook as a result, but it's still, the meat came out
The
nice.
meat is beautifully tender.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just using spoons to eat.
Yeah.
And the sauce, you can really sense how the bones and the marrow of the bones has thickened the sauce, but without sort of clouding it.
Now I do want to remind, I know it looks very oily. It is meant to be a rich dish that you don't have all the time.
Every day.
But what I would recommend, if the oil bothers you, skim the oil, save it, and whenever you're doing another meat cooking dish of some kind and you want some extra flavor, use that oil. And you can just use it right in the beginning of the cooking. It'll impart lots of flavor into it.
So shall we try the restaurant versions. Mm-hmm. This is definitely more of an orangish color.
Very
And
thick.
the sauce is quite thick.
I think I made a mess.
Oh, well. So you can see they've included some whole spices, some bay leaf, and we can see little bits of whole spice, which is a good sign.
Definitely made with tomatoes. I can taste it right away.
Yeah.
Right away. It's not bad. It's good.
Sauce is very good, and it does have that hint of citrus.
It does, from the tomatoes.
It's a little, yeah, you're right. There's an acidity to the tomatoes.
Yeah. There's.
But
Sorry, go ahead.
it does feel different than like other Indian sort of regular curries. Like,
So whenever we'd go to Pakistan, more on the north side near Murray, if we stayed at a hotel there, this is what I consider hotel curry. I do not consider this Rogan Josh. It has those flavors, and I miss those flavors because I actually really enjoy what's in this one here. The tomato taste, but you also get the strong, there's fennel and other spices in there that distinctly makes it this. And this I would have with a crispy naan. A hot crispy naan, fresh out of a tandoor. That's what that reminds me of.
definitely has, right up front, you can taste the tomato in it,
Yeah.
which is interesting. So this one,
There's a different smell to this.
this is a very different smell.
Yeah.
Also, the sauce, you can see
The oil.
the sort of red color oil,
Yeah.
similar to what we have in our recipe, but it's definitely it's a little thicker sauce.
It has what you would call rogan on top.
Rogan. Ooh, lots of there. I can see pieces of onion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to put this on the plate because
Yeah.
otherwise I didn't wear it.
The meat is a little chewier, which is fine because in Rogan Josh, you don't want the meat to be fully tender where it's falling off the bone. You still want it to have a bit of a bite.
There's still some tomato in there. Mm-hmm. Nice mix of herbs and spices.
There's turmeric in there.
A little more distinctive.
I would not consider that. These are the flavors that I'm familiar with in restaurants, which makes me go, I can taste the base gravy being the tomato gravy, and we add other stuff on top. The main difference between these two, this has fenugreek added to it. Near the end. I knew it as soon as we opened the container, I could smell it. I did not smell it in this one. So this one has fenugreek added to it.
But both are very different
Yeah.
from the sort of, now this is the pundit version of Rogan Josh with asafetida, which is so interesting because, trust me, the smell of asafetida will empty the room quite quickly.
If you want an uninvited guest.
Open the asafetida. But you don't get any of that in the dish itself. It sort of reminds me of like Thai fish sauce or fish sauce. When you open the jar, whoa, stand back. But as soon as it cooks, that scent is gone and there's a richness to it. And this really has a beautiful richness.
Tell me if you taste something different now that you've had the other two. I found I tasted more fennel after tasting these two.
The fennel seed.
Yeah, it ended up standing out more.
This is much more of a distinctive
Yeah.
dish. It really feels like sort of a, I mean, it's very rich.
Yes.
There's the ghee in there. There's a lot of the richness from the meat and the bones. So it's not something that you would probably want to eat every day.
No.
But I can see for like a celebratory meal as part of a wedding
A
feast.
wedding in a very cold environment.
This would be absolutely spectacular.
Yeah.
And the color is so distinctive and bright.
Yeah. You can even
That's,
see it on camera.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen anything in what we've cooked
Yeah.
that has that real clarity and brightness to it, and the clarity and brightness of flavor.
Yeah. And the name also denotes it, Rogan Josh. It's something that you made with a lot of passion.
Right.
Yeah.
Red passion.
Red passion or oily passion, however you want to say it.
Red oily passion.
But it's
But
the
it
braising.
really is delicious, and it's very distinctive from what you would get in a restaurant.
Yeah. These are good. We'll still finish these off.
Oh yeah, no problem.
to
They're
me-
very tasty
Yeah, but to me, I don't consider them, now that I know what an actual Rogan Josh tastes like.
through much research and looking around.
Yes, because, whenever we go to restaurants, I never understood why people were ordering Rogan Josh, because I would try it, and then I would try another lamb dish or beef dish. I'm like, the base notes are the same. I'm not sure what the difference is.
And I think this is something that you're sort of discovering as you explore Indian food, is the regional differences are much more distinctive than what we experience here.
Yeah.
Where, obviously chefs come to Canada and they open a restaurant, they have their own background.
Yep.
But, in Canada, we expect to have a variety
Yeah.
of food from, we want to
Yeah.
have a vindaloo,
Yeah.
and we want to have a madras,
Yeah.
and we want to have a butter chicken, and we want to have an aloo gobi, So I think there's a tendency for a lot of the
Categorizing.
flavors to get sort of homogenized.
Yeah.
So that a Rogan Josh is, it's like some of the other curries.
Yeah.
It's got a different flavor to it, but it's nowhere near as distinctive and unique
As simple
this
or as
recipe.
elegant.
Yeah.
It's very simple.
Very beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well done.
Oh, thank you.
I know it's been quite a project for you to find out about all of this. And
Yeah.
it was really worth the investigation. And it's not that difficult a dish to make.
No.
And if you really want to make something for, say, if you're having guests over and you want to have a bit of a special occasion, this is something they may think they've had it before because it's on the menu in restaurants, but this will be a distinct treat for your guests.
They'd be pleasantly surprised, as we were pleasantly
Yeah,
surprised.
absolutely. It's
Yeah.
delicious.
Yeah. Well, we hope you enjoy it. We're hoping to do more videos like this where we do exploration. And, the reason I get to know more about this is because I speak the language, so I have access to information where other non-Hindi or Urdu speakers may not.
I'm picking up a word or two.
Yes, he is. But I'm hoping with this, then we can impart the information that we find out. Because I've been enjoying this. I'm discovering things that, I wasn't really sure, or not so sure, but unknown about before. Or didn't know about before. Grammar. So as I'm finding these out and as I'm sharing it with Rob, thankfully he enjoys these kind of meals, we are then sharing it with you, and we'll see what comes up next.
Highly recommended to get the ingredients and make this.
Yeah.
It's not wildly expensive, as we use just regular lamb stew meat, which isn't a cheap date, but it's a nice sort of special treat.
Definitely cheaper than a prime cut. If you do it with beef, I will warn you, it will be a different flavor because you do taste the meat very much in this.
Absolutely.
So if you don't like lamb and you want to do beef, go for it. If you can't find Kashmiri chili, you can use paprika, but paprika will give it also a different taste. And will also give it a different red hue, but that's an option. I would say if you can, Kashmiri chili is so much easier to get online now and in a lot of multinational or multicultural grocery stores. The least amount of white specks it has, the better that chili powder is. That means they took more of the skin rather than the inside veins and the seeds, which will then give you more of a true red tone.
And the Ratan Jot, is it available online?
I believe Ratan Jot is available online. I found it at an Asian grocery store to my surprise. Here's a footage of the brand of Kashmiri chili that I prefer and the brand of Ratan Jot. This is the only brand that I could find. You may be able to find these online. If you do, great. If you don't, at least you know what to work off of.
And it does impart a really special flavor. So look around, find the ingredients, and enjoy.
Yeah, I know we're going to go enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hope everyone has a great day. See you guys next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well done.
All of a sudden, the sun came out.
Yeah.